Good morning, class 10. As you must be remembering, we are doing the chapter Nationalism in India. Let us continue the chapter today. We had done till this part that the non-cooperation movement was gradually spreading all over India. Gandhiji was the leader of the movement, and there were various ways in which this movement started spreading in India. I am reading a little bit from the previous two paragraphs, so that we can recall what we were doing last time, because today what we are going to do is all interconnected. I am starting from the second paragraph of page number 57. How could non-cooperation become a movement? Gandhiji proposed that the movement should unfold in stages. It should begin with the surrender of titles that the government awarded, boycott of civil services, army, police, courts, and legislative councils, schools, and foreign goods. So last time we studied that Gandhiji encouraged the people of India to surrender all these things, whether it was studying in a school run by the British, or holding any post in the government offices, or if a person held any title, he had to surrender the title, boycott of civil services, boycott of use of foreign goods, etc. Then, in case the government used repression, a full civil disobedience campaign would be launched. This was the idea of Mahatma Gandhi, how non-cooperation movement should unfold in different steps or stages. Now I am coming to the next paragraph. Many within the Congress were, however, concerned about the proposals. They were reluctant to boycott the council elections scheduled for November 1920, and they feared that the movement might lead to a popular violence. As I had told you in the last class, that whenever any movement starts, it is not that 100% cooperation can be expected. There are people, there may be a majority of population who is for the movement, but there are always some section of people, some group of people who will see their selfish interests and they will boycott the movement. So this is what was going to happen here also. In the months between September and December, there was an intense tussle within the Congress. There was, atmosphere of tension within the Congress itself. For a while, there seemed no meeting point between the supporters and opponents of the movement. Finally, at the Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, a compromise was worked out and non-cooperation program was adopted. Now in the next paragraph we will see how did the movement spread. When we will read the next page today, you will see that the movement meant differently to different sections of people. How did different sections of the people join the movement? How did they support the movement? What did they do to show that they were with Mahatma Gandhi, they were with the non-cooperation movement? Let us start. How did the movement unfold? Who participated in it? How did different social groups conceive the idea of non-cooperation? That means, how did different people in India, different sections of people in India perceive the idea of non-cooperation in their own way, and how did they react in their own way? Let us see from the next page. Different strands within the movement. The non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921. Underline this line. This year is important. The non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921. Various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspirations. They had their own specific demands, and accordingly they supported the non-cooperation movement. All of them responded to the call of Swaraj, but the term meant different things to different people. That means everybody was supporting Swaraj, everybody wanted freedom, everybody wanted to be free from the British yoke. But how they reacted to this concept of Swaraj, their reaction of different people was showed or portrayed in a different way. The movement in the towns. The movement started with middle class participation in the cities. Now, here in this paragraph, keep on underlining how the middle class participation showed that they were supporters of Swaraj and they did not want the British rule anymore. Keep on underlining. The movement started with the middle class participation in the cities. Thousands of students left government controlled schools and colleges. Headmasters and teachers resigned and lawyers gave up their legal practices. So you have seen how different people belonging to the ordinary class in the society, the middle class in the society, how did they show in their own way that they were now no more supporters of the British rule. They did not want the British to continue to stay in India anymore, and they were with Mahatma Gandhi. They were supporting Swaraj. They were supporting non-cooperation movement. How did they show this? Thousands of students left government controlled schools and colleges. Headmasters and teachers resigned and lawyers gave up their legal practices. Keep on marking all these things. The council elections were boycotted in most provinces except Madras, where the Justice Party, the party of the non-Brahmins, felt that entering the council was one way of gaining some power, something that usually only Brahmins had access to. That means some sections of people who wanted still power for them, who were greedy for power, they were still not understanding how important it was now to join the national movement and turn the British out of India. Still they were seeing their selfish motives and they wanted power, they wanted to gain victory in the council elections. Only those limited section of people were supporters of the council elections. Otherwise, others were boycotting all the council elections wherever they were held in the country, and they were in favor of Swaraj. Next paragraph. The effects of non-cooperation on the economic front were more dramatic. Now, in this paragraph, you will see how the non-cooperation movement affected the economy of the country or the economic front of the country. The effects of non-cooperation on the economic front were more dramatic. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor shops picketed. As you can see on the right side of the page, the word picket is written and its meaning is also given. A form of demonstration or protest by which people block the entrance to a shop, factory or office. Liquor shops were picketed. That means nobody was now allowed to enter the liquor shops. The entrance was blocked. And foreign cloth burnt in huge bonfires. These were three ways to hamper the economy of the British. As you have seen, as you have read so many times, I have told you when you were in class 8, I have told you several times what was the main purpose of the British coming into India? Trade. Trade was the main reason why the British wanted to occupy the whole of India and rule over our country, and they were successful. They had been successful for so many years, isn't it? So now when the people were realizing the importance of joining Mahatma Gandhi so that they could free themselves from the British and from the slavery of the British, working under the British rule, now they had understood that if they will boycott foreign goods, if they will picket the liquor shops, if they will burn the foreign produced clothes, then in this way they are going to cause a large harm, a huge loss to the British economy. And if Britishers will see gradually that all people in India by and large are joining this national movement, the economy of the British will be hampered, then it will directly or indirectly it will give a message that now the time has come when they will have to leave India. Now they will not be able to continue in India and do their trading or exploit the Indians as they had been doing for such a long period of time. So mark these three important things which were done to cause harm to the economy. Foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, and foreign cloth burnt in huge bonfires. The import of foreign cloth halved between 1921 and 1922. Another important thing, underline. The import of foreign cloth halved because now we were moving towards Swadeshi. We were focusing on Swadeshi, we were focusing on Indian made goods, we were focusing on Khadi, and people were simply burning the goods made in England or the goods made by the Britishers in India. They were not using the foreign made goods at all. The import of foreign cloth halved between 1921 and 22, its value dropping from rupees 102 crore to rupees 57 crore. So can you see the loss? In many places, merchants and traders refused to trade in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. Underline. As the boycotted movement spread and people began discarding imported clothes and wearing only Indian ones, production of Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. So this gave a great impetus on the manufacture of Indian made goods. It encouraged the industries in India, it encouraged the handloom industry, the textile industry in India. They got more opportunity to manufacture goods so that Indians could use only those clothes or goods which were manufactured in our country, and they boycotted everything that was made in England or that was made or manufactured by the Britishers. So in this paragraph we have seen how the non-cooperation movement had an economic impact. Next para. But this movement in the cities gradually slowed down for a variety of reasons. Now in the starting, as we have seen that it was gaining momentum, it was speeding up, but later on, gradually in some cities the movement became slow. The spread of the movement became slow. Let us see why. But this movement in cities gradually slowed down for a variety of reasons. Now mark the reasons also why it started so well, but later on in cities it became slow. Khadi cloth was often more expensive than mass-produced mill cloth, and poor people could not afford to buy it. This was one reason, first reason why the non-cooperation movement became slow in cities. What is the reason? Mark as first point and underline. Khadi was an expensive cloth and it was more expensive as compared to the cloth produced in mills, and the poor people could not afford to wear only khadi. They still had to take the support of the cloth which was produced in mills all this time. As you must be knowing, children, if you have gone to any exhibitions or places where handmade things are displayed or sold, you will always see that those things which are handmade are always costlier as compared to those things which are made by machines. Why? One reason is very simple. When things are made and manufactured through machines, it is done very rapidly, it is done very fast, and the manufacturing process is very fast. But when it is made, when it is handmade, it requires lot of time, it requires lot of extensive labor, and it has to be expensive, because so much of human labor is involved, so much of time of so many people is involved. That is why handmade things are always costlier as compared to machine made goods. So the first point was that khadi was expensive as compared to mill produced cloth, and poor people could not afford khadi. Let us see what is the next reason why the movement became slow. How then could they boycott mill cloth for too long? Similarly, the boycott of British institutions posed a problem. Earlier we have seen in the previous history class we have read that the British run schools and colleges were boycotted, but this boycott also could not be continued for a long time. Why? Let us see. Similarly, the boycott of British institutions posed a problem. For the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institutions had to be set up so that they could be used in place of British ones. This was the reason why it was not so successful. Although the Indian people were very willingly ready to boycott the studies in schools and colleges run by the Britishers, but they again had to go to those institutions run by the British, because unless and until more alternative institutions were set up in the country, how could they continue their education? They had stopped going to the British schools and colleges, that was okay. But when the people were encouraged not to study in those institutions, then alternative institutions, alternative schools and colleges had to be set up. But it was not such an easy task. It was a long process. It was a time-taking process. So, in order to continue their education, people again had to go to those schools which they had boycotted. For the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institutions had to be set up so they could be used in place of British ones. These were slow to come up. As I just told you, it was a time-taking process. It is not an easy task that today you stop studying in a British institution and tomorrow morning you will see that a new school is there in your locality. It is not so. It takes time. It has to take time. Building a new school, appointing Indian teachers, then it has many more things which is involved in this setting up of a new infrastructure. These were slow to come up. So students and teachers began trickling back to government schools, and lawyers joined back work in government courts. So when people did not find any alternative, whether those were students, whether they were teachers, or whether they were lawyers who were going to the courts, they again had to switch back to the British run schools, colleges or courts. Rebellion in the countryside. So we have seen how in towns the non-cooperation movement started, how it started spreading, how the middle class people was involved, how it affected the economy, and why it became slow gradually in cities. Now let us see rebellion in the countryside. From the cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside. It drew into its fold the struggles of peasants and tribals, which were developing in different parts of India in the years after the war. So till now we have seen how the common people were affected. Now we will see how the peasants were affected, how they showed their reaction towards the non-cooperation movement, and how the tribal people reacted. In Awadh, peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra. Please underline, this is a very important name, and often a question is asked in the board exam, who was Baba Ramchandra? So you will have to underline the first and the second line and learn it. Okay? In Awadh, peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra. a sannyasi who had earlier been to Fiji as an indentured laborer. Alright, we will study about this term later on in a lot of detail. The movement here was against talukdars and landlords who demanded from the peasants exorbitantly high rents and a variety of other cesses. Cesses means taxes. So in Awadh, the people were against those talukdars and landlords who demanded high rents from these poor peasants, and also they were imposing a variety of taxes on them. Peasants had to do begar. Now this is again a very important term, and the meaning is given on the right side of the page. Begar is labor that villagers were forced to contribute without any payment. Underline this and learn this. What is meant by begar? This is also a question often asked in the board exam. So begar means that the villagers were forced to do labor, they were forced to do work without any payment. This is begar. Peasants had to do begar and work at landlords' farms without any payment. As tenants, they had no security of tenure. That means they were not sure how long are they going to do a job in that land, on that land. Anytime they can be chucked out, anytime they can be turned out by their landlord or by their talukdars. The peasants, I am reading the previous line again. As tenants, they had no security of tenure, being regularly evicted so that they could acquire no right over the leased land. They regularly evicted, that means every now and then, very frequently, they were turned out from working on one piece of land and they had to take the shelter under some other landlord. They had to work on some other piece of land. So this process of turning out the peasants of Awadh from one piece of land to the other piece of land, this process was very frequently done. Why? So that they could not acquire any right. They could not say that this land belongs to me, I have been working for this land, on this land for so many years, so this piece of land belongs to me. In order to make sure that they did not acquire their right on any piece of land, they were turned out from one part of the land to the other very frequently. In many places, I have missed one line. The peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue. Underline. What did the peasants demand? The peasants movement demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. The landlords were oppressive, they were exploiting the poor peasants in Awadh. So the peasants of Awadh demanded three things. Firstly, reduction of revenue, as they were so poor, their economic conditions was bad, they were not able to give high revenue, pay high revenue. So they demanded reduction of revenue. They also demanded abolition of begar. That means they should be given payment for their work. They should not be forced to work without any money, without any payment. And social boycott of oppressive landlords. Those landlords who were exploiting the poor peasants, they should be turned out from the society. They should be socially boycotted. These three things were the demands of the Awadh peasants. In many places, Nai Dhobi Bands were organized. Nai, you know, barber, Dhobi, washerman. In places, Nai Dhobi Bands were organized by panchayats to deprive landlords of services of even barbers and washermen. So this was another way to show their protests against the oppressive landlords. Nai and Dhobi Bands were organized so that these landlords should be deprived of the services of barbers and washermen. In June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru began going around the villages in Awadh, talking to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances. By October, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and a few others. Within a month, over 300 branches had been set up in villages around the region. So, when the non-cooperation movement began the following year, the effort of the Congress was to integrate. I am reading this again. So, when the non-cooperation movement began the following year, the effort of the Congress was to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into a wider struggle. That means, in order to make this non-cooperation movement more and more successful, the Awadh peasant struggle, the protest started by the peasants of Awadh, it was encouraged to become or to take the form of a wider struggle. The peasant movement, however, developed in forms that the Congress leadership was unhappy with. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked. See how the people revolted. Which people are we talking about? The Awadh peasants, how they revolted. In 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and grain hoards were taken over. All those places where grain was collected in huge amount, all those places were now under the peasants. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Mahatma Gandhi had declared that no taxes were to be paid and land was to be redistributed among the poor. The name of Mahatma Gandhi was being invoked to sanction all action and aspirations. In these last three lines mean that the people were told that in the name of Mahatma Gandhi that you don't have to pay any taxes and land was to be redistributed among the poor. The name of Mahatma Gandhi was taken because the people believed that when the name of Mahatma Gandhi will come, then nobody will put a question mark, nobody will ask anything, and they will follow the actions, they will follow the plans which are made without any question and answer, without any protest or without any doubt. So in order to get more cooperation of these peasants, in order to make the peasant struggle a mass movement, the name of Mahatma Gandhi was taken, and it was said that Mahatma Gandhi has said that the people now don't have to pay any taxes and the land should be distributed among the poor people. So this is how the peasants in Awadh revolted and they supported Mahatma Gandhi and the movement started by him. Next page. Now on this page, in this first paragraph, we will see how different people interpreted Swaraj differently, how they reacted, how they supported Swaraj in their own way. Tribal peasants interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of Swaraj in yet another way. Just now we were reading about Awadh peasants. Now we will read about the tribal people. How did the tribal people interpret the message of Mahatma Gandhi and they supported Swaraj? How did they support Swaraj? In the Gudem hills of Andhra Pradesh, for instance, a militant guerrilla movement spread in the early 1920s, not a form of struggle that the Congress could approve. Here, as in other forest regions, the colonial government had closed large forest areas. Now, here you should underline that how the tribal people were troubled by the colonial government. As in other forest regions, the colonial government had closed large forest areas, preventing people from entering the forests to graze their cattle. See how the tribals were put into trouble by the colonial government or the British government. They were not allowed to enter into large forest areas and they were prevented from entering the forest to graze their cattle or to collect fuel, wood and fruits. This enraged the hill people. Now the tribal people, the people living in the hills, they were angry because their entry in the large forest area were being restricted. They were not allowed to prevent these areas, these forest areas, for grazing their cattle. Moreover, they were also not allowed to collect fuel wood, that is lakdi, fuel wood, and fruits. So this made them angry. Not only were their livelihoods affected, but they felt that their traditional rights were being denied. What were their traditional rights? Entry into the forest, because forest is not anybody's personal property, isn't it? So they believe that their traditional right of going into the forest areas, letting their cattle graze there, taking fuel wood from there, taking fruits from the trees, all these were their traditional rights, and they were being denied from those rights now. When the government began forcing them to contribute begar for road building, the hill people revolted. This was another way, or another reason you can say why the hill people revolted. When the British government forced them to contribute in the building of roads, but they had to contribute as begar, that means they will not be paid for their hard work, for their labor. So they started revolting. The person who came to lead them was an interesting figure. Now here again, underline the name which is going to start from the next line. Alluri Sitaram Raju. Underline. This is another short question, very simple and a very small question with a very short answer asked in the board exam. Who was Alluri Sitaram Raju? Alluri Sitaram Raju claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological predictions and heal people, and he could survive even bullet shots. Captivated by Raju, the rebels proclaimed that he was an incarnation of God. Alluri Sitaram Raju was a great help. He was like a Masiha for the people. He believed that he had some extraordinary powers, he had some supernatural powers, and he could survive bullet shots, he could heal the people if they were injured or they were unwell, and he could correct the astrological predictions. He could change the astrological predictions. So people were so captivated, people were so impressed by the personality of Alluri Sitaram Raju that they believed that he is an incarnation of God. Raju talked of the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi, said he was inspired by the non-cooperation movement and persuaded people to wear khadi and give up drinking. But at the same time,